Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Well, you've made it. Yes, you've made it all the way to Friday. And of course, on Friday here on the podcast, we love to bring you FOMO Friday. We don't want you to have that fear of missing out. And so, since you're not listening to propaganda media anymore, we bring you FOMO Friday, which covers the stories of the week that you should probably know about. And some you may have heard about, some maybe you haven't. And we're gonna end up. You're not gonna want to miss. You're going to want to wait to at least the end of the podcast. Kind of a funny little Dum-Dum story, okay? So anyway, little tease there for you. But let's start out today with Lori Comstock from USA Today. She wrote about the Pope. Yes, if you hadn't heard, you probably have, we have a brand new Pope. She says that history was made Thursday when Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost was named the first ever U.S. Pope, with many now wondering his political views, from women to LGBTQ, as he takes the helm of the world's Catholic Church. Now, Prevost was born and raised in the Chicago suburbs, and will follow on the heels of Pope Francis, who had garnered praise and respect, well, depends on who you talk to, I guess, during his 12 years, but also garnered significant controversy, I would agree more with that, for his decision-making that was a clear departure from the prior conservative predecessors. What are Pope Leo, and he's going to go by Pope Leo the 14th, or the 16th, actually, it says here. And what are his views on LGBTQ? Well, that women and, as she puts it, marginalized groups are under scrutiny now. And here's what we know. What are Robert Prevost's views is that the new pope is somewhat liberal and probably less conservative than many would have liked. Prevost is considered a centrist by some, but on many social issues, he's seen as progressive, as they like to call it. I'm embracing marginalized groups like Francis did. This is according to CBS News. Pope Leo, see, I knew it was the 14th. They had it written down incorrectly before. It is Leo the 14th. Views on women. His views on women are that the Gospel Broadcasting Network reports that Pope Leo maintains conservative positions on certain matters of the church doctrine. And when it comes to women, Prevost has said he opposes ordaining them as deacons. So he's a bit conservative on that. What is the Pope's view on LGBTQ? Well, the new Pope and his views on that are revealed a little bit during his remarks on Thursday. Pope Leo said that the church should be a missionary institution, quote, always open to receiving with open arms for everyone, like this square where he was at, open to all who need our charity, our presence, dialogue, and love, unquote. Well, I wouldn't disagree with that. It's not really saying too much about where he stands on the LGBTQ type of issues. But yeah, who can disagree with that, right? Well, as bishop in Peru, Pope Leo was reportedly against a government plan to teach gender in schools, stating that it was confusing, as he put it, since it sought to create genders that don't exist. This according to the LGBTQ Nation. And it was citing a local news outlet with that. Now, according to a 2012 article from the New York Times, he cited certain lifestyles when he lamented that Western news media and popular culture had created sympathy for believers and practices that are at odds with the gospel. That's exactly how he put it. And he said he cited the homosexual lifestyle and alternative families comprised of same-sex partners and their adopted children. So again, a little more conservative on that. But Pope Francis was heavily involved in what are controversially seen as political debates throughout his papacy, from economics, migration policy, immigration, and climate change. He was the first pontiff, as they put it, to be publicly inclusive of the LGBTQ Catholic community, often meeting with those kind of groups and extending blessings to same-sex unions. Even we covered that a little bit on the podcast. He was an advocate for the poor and routinely criticized the capitalist system and trickle-down economics, leading to some that labeled Pope Francis as Marxist. I mean, he definitely had Marxist views. I mean, there's no two ways around it. But he denied that label. He didn't like that label, and that label as many Marxists don't. But he tried to argue that he was promoting gospel and the social doctrine of the Catholic Church. So how does this new pope come down? Well, it looks like more conservative than Francis, but maybe he might have some liberal leanings. It's still a little early to tell because this particular pope kind of came out of nowhere. This was not one of the popes that or one of the bishops that was seen as in the running, I guess, for pope. But well, first American pope. We'll see how all of this pans out. Well, kind of an interesting little story up next, and this comes from a series of articles from the Daily Wire, and this is about Walt Disney and how, well, they're a little hypocritical. Let's just put it that way. A few years ago, the Walt Disney Company threw a tantrum over Florida's inaccurately nicknamed "Don't Say Gay" law. So, Florida, they bolstered their parental rights in education bill, and by putting some things in there that basically said that it's not good to have Harriet Has Two Mommies books for first graders in the first grade library, or how to change your gender for third graders or whatever. And so of course the liberals they say, oh well, this is you can't say gay law, but of course it wasn't. You can't go to jail for saying gay in Florida. But Florida, Walt Disney came out against that, and then got kind of squashed by the governor there, DeSantis, and they had to back down on some things. But now the entertainment behemoth is building its first new theme park in 15 years in, wait for it, Abu Dhabi. It's a city where homosexuality is illegal. yeah. It's not even "Don't Say Gay" law. It is, homosexuality is illegal there. Turns out the bottom line does matter. Disney's theme parks are performing well. The company reported they brought in $8.9 billion in the second quarter. But Disney shares have traded down 17.2% so far this year. So they're definitely down. Abu Dhabi is the capital city of the United Arab Emirates, where sexual activity between two men or two women is punishable by up to 14 years in prison. Yeah. Also, trans-identifying people or a male disguising as a female can be criminally prosecuted and face up to a year in prison and fines. So the country's laws reportedly originate from, of course, Sharia law. It's a Muslim country. And here's the quote, "The Walt Disney Company and Mural, Abu Dhabi's leading creator of immersive destinations and experiences, announced an agreement to create a landmark Disney theme park resort in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates." This is what Disney said in their announcement on Wednesday. They said this seventh Disney theme park resort will combine Disney's iconic stories, characters, and attractions with Abu Dhabi's vibrant culture, stunning shorelines, and breathtaking architecture, Disney said. Well, Disney CEO Robert Iger called it a thrilling moment for our company. And Abu Dhabi's culture is rich with an appreciation of the arts and creativity. This is what Iger said. And Disneyland Abu Dhabi will be authentically Disney and distinctly um, Emirati, I guess is what they call themselves over there in the Emirates. Disney also included a statement from Abu Dhabi's chairman of its Department of Culture and Tourism. His name is Mohammed Khalifa Al Mundarak, I guess is how you pronounce his name, who said that the city is a place, quote, where we preserve our past while designing the future, unquote. Well, back in 2022, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed the state's parental rights bill prohibiting classroom instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity in kindergarten through third grade. Well, in response, of course, Disney came out swinging against that law. I mean, they did everything they could to fight that. Disney CEO at the time, Bob Chapek, he called DeSantis, quote, to express our disappointment and concern that if the legislation becomes law, it could be used to unfairly target gay, lesbian, non-binary, and transgender kids and families, unquote. Well, Disney's unusual decision to publicly oppose the law kicked off a years-long fight with Florida officials, of course. And DeSantis actually went after Disney's special tax district in Florida, which had allowed Disney to govern semi-independently since 1967. Meanwhile, Disney has come under fire from parents in recent years for inserting LGBT themes in children's movies, such as a gay kiss in the 2022 Lightyear film, which propped or flopped at the box office, and of course a number of other movies, like I think their last 9 or something like that, have all been flops. And so, yeah, this is kind of an interesting deal here because they put up such a fuss in Florida, but here they're going to go to a country that makes this type of thing illegal. I mean, it's just a little bit. I mean, like I've said before, if liberals don't, if they don't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all. So that's what it boils down to. Well, for our next story, this is kind of interesting, and I love not what happened, but how it concluded. Let me explain. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said his office is renewing the visa status of the mass anti-Israel protesters who were arrested after occupying Columbia University's Butler Library. Quote, we are reviewing the visa statuses of the trespassers and vandals who took over Columbia University's library. This is what Rubio posted on X. He said, post-Hamas thugs are no longer welcome in our great nation, unquote. When the announcement comes as the Trump administration continues to crack down on foreign visa holders participating in activities aligned with terror organizations, such as the anti-Semitic protests on college campuses. The cafe-wearing protesters carrying large signs and chanting invaded the library to disrupt students studying for finals. And while outside, the protesters vandalized walls and furniture and graffitied "Columbia will burn for the martyrs" on a glass case. The school's anti-Israel group, Columbia University Apartheid Divest, or CUAD, as they like to abbreviate it, posted a video declaring that over 100 protesters have just flooded Columbia University for Palestine. Well, the language seems to be a nod to Hamas's name for its October 7th massacre of over 1,200 Israeli citizens and others, dubbed Operation Al-Qasam Flood. The group declared that the protesters were reclaiming the library for the people and renaming it Basil Al-Araj Popular University. That's the name they wanted for it. Well, Basil al-Raj was a Palestinian revolutionary writer who was killed in 2017 during a firefight with the Israeli Defense Forces after opening fire and running out of ammunition, according to the Jerusalem Post. When protesters tried to leave, and this is kind of the cool part. So here they take over the library, okay? They vandalize it and all this kind of stuff. But when protesters tried to leave, they were denied by public safety officers who requested to see their IDs before leaving. Of course, causing the protest to intensify. And for about 5 hours, the disruption continued until about 80 protesters were taken into custody by law enforcement officers and placed on police buses. This, according to the New York Post. Now, Quad announced on Thursday that all of their comrades, as they put it, that's their name, okay? All of their comrades who were arrested are now free. Quote, requesting the presence of the NYPD is not the outcome we wanted, but it was absolutely necessary to secure the safety of our community, according to the Columbia president, Claire Shipman, and that said in a statement. Now, Shipman added that 2 public safety officers were injured by the mob and that some of the demonstrators were not affiliated with Columbia University. Wow, shocker. In a statement, New York City Mayor Eric Adams encouraged the parents of the protesters to call your children and make clear that breaking the law is wrong and they should exit the building immediately. He added that those who do not attend Columbia should exit immediately or face arrest. Quote, to our Jewish New Yorkers, especially the students at Columbia University who feel threatened or unsafe attending class because of these events, know that your mayor stands with you and will always work to keep you safe. Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson, he thanked Rubio and President Donald Trump for cracking down on the protesters, adding that America will no longer tolerate your anti-Semitic violence, destruction, harassment, and intimidation. So, kind of a neat way to handle this, I thought. I mean, this comes basically at the same time in the state of Washington, where a number of protesters invaded the University of Washington, did about $1 million worth of damage to the engineering building there, and nothing was done. I mean, police weren't even called. And of course, Washington has a mayor or a governor who is very sympathetic to that kind of cause, even making 2 Muslim holidays permanent state holidays here just last week. But anyway, this is a great way to do it. You know, they came in, they said, you know what, you need to show me ID. If you can't show me ID, then you're going to jail or you're getting deported. So that, I mean, this is, like I say, just a great way to handle that. I really thought that was good. Well, another really good story. I mean, again, the story itself is kind of heavy. The story itself is, you don't like to see it, but you like to see the end result. Federal authorities say that they have saved more than 100 children in an operation that resulted in the capture of more than 200 sex offenders. Yeah. The Department of Justice announced Wednesday that the FBI arrested 205 child sex offenders throughout the country in Operation Restore Justice, part of the nationwide crackdown on child sex trafficking and abuse that the agency says resulted in the rescue of 115 children. Quote, the Department of Justice will never stop fighting to protect victims, especially child victims, and we will not rest until we hunt down, arrest, and prosecute every child predator who preys on the most vulnerable among us. That's what Attorney General Pamela Bondi said as she announced the operation, which took place over the course of 5 days, by the way. She said, I am grateful to the FBI and their state and local partners for their incredible work in Operation Restore Justice and have directed my prosecutors not to negotiate. Among the more than 200 suspects arrested in the operation are an illegal alien from Mexico, a former Washington, D.C. police officer, and a Minnesota state trooper and Army reservist. The suspects have been charged with a range of crimes, including child sex trafficking, possessing, producing, and distributing child sexual abuse material, and online enticement of minors. Bondi also warned parents that they must keep an eye on their children's activity online to ensure that they are not being targeted by predators. Quote, parents, you have to know that this is so serious. Your child has no right to privacy on the internet. None, is what Bondi noted. She said, you have to monitor what your kids are doing, whether they're playing games on the internet, on social media, any other websites that children and teenagers frequent, an online predator can find them. Now, FBI Director Kash Patel said that the success of the operation, which involved agents from 55 field offices, sends a clear message to those who prey on children. Every child deserves to grow up free from fear and exploitation, and the FBI will continue to be relentless in our pursuit of those who exploit the most vulnerable among us. That's what Patel said. Quote, the Operation Restore Justice proves that no predator is out of reach and no child will be forgotten. By leveraging the strength of our field offices and our federal, state, and local partners, we're sending a clear message. There is no place to hide for those who prey on children. Well, that's great news, right? And we've talked about some really good news, even of some heavy subjects. We've talked about the hypocrisy of things. We have another story when it comes to the hypocrisy of things. On Wednesday, Senator Bernie Sanders he defended the exorbitant use of private jets to fly around the country during his Fighting Oligarchy tour with, of course, Representative AOC. Fox News host Brent Baier broached the topic during an interview with Sanders on Special Report. He first alluded to a Politico report on how Senator Elisa Slotkin urged Democrats to stop harping on the oligarchy because the term does not resonate beyond coastal institutions. So they're not getting much traction with the oligarchy thing. Well, then Baier referred to a recent Washington Free Beacon story on Sanders' main campaign committee, Friends of Bernie Sanders, that's what they call themselves, spending $221,000 chartering private jets during the first quarter of 2025. So we're talking about the first 3 months. He's spent almost $250,000 on private chartered jets. After the senator spending millions of dollars on such flights over the years, of course. Quote, Elisa Slotkin, senator from Michigan, she said, you shouldn't be using oligarch. It's over people's heads. You've gotten criticized from other people, Baier said. Free Beacon says Bernie Sanders spent $221,000 on private jets amid the Fighting Oligarchy tour, paid for by friends of Bernie Sanders. That you've spent millions of dollars in campaign funds on private jet travel over the years. How do you push back on both of those things? Well, this Sanders initially, he was trying to take a swipe at President Donald Trump. He said when the last time you saw Donald Trump during a campaign mode at National Airport. So he's trying to throw shade on Trump and get the attention away from him. And Baier just says, no, it doesn't. But he's also fighting he's also not fighting the oligarchy. So, quote, no, you run a campaign and you do 3 or 4 or 5 rallies in a week. The only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people, Sanders said. You think I'm going to be sitting in a waiting line at United? Waiting? while 30,000 people are waiting. That's the way you can get around. No apologies for that. so, I mean, he's unapologetic. He's saying, hey, I'm fighting oligarchy by being an oligarch. He added that the campaign travel, that what the campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future. So he's doubling down with the reporting on the price tag of the Fighting Oligarchy tour flights. The National Republican Congressional Committee criticized Sanders and AOC, of course, for their jet-setting ways, with a not-so-subtle nod to their climate activism, because both of those two are, of course, into the climate change, man-made climate change thing, right? Champagne socialists Bernie Sanders and Andrea Ocasio-Cortez demanded Americans surrender their pickup trucks, air conditioning, and meat from the luxe leather seats of the private jets that cost more per hour than most Americans earn in months. Their hypocrisy is staggering. That's, of course, the NRCC spokesperson Ben Peterson and what he told Fox News Digital. Well, another kind of interesting thing that popped up, and it goes to the fact that the liberal Democrats, they just don't get it. A new statue of a overweight black woman placed in Times Square in New York City is inspiring a lot of reactions. Yeah. The Times Square Art recently erected a statue by artist Thomas J. Price, which is called Grounded in the Stars, as a temporary display in the tourist-heavy area of Manhattan. There will also be a Man series of billboards displayed in the area as well, I guess. But the Times Square website says that the piece, Price's multi-channel presentation on the screens and sculptural installation on the plaza below, forms a two-part takeover in Times Square that foregrounds the intrinsic value of individual and amplifies traditional marginalized bodies on a monumental scale. So basically, what's happening here, without the big words, is that they erected a 12-foot high statue of a black woman. She's overweight. She's got pants on that are too tight, and a t-shirt, what looks like a baggy t-shirt, and you say, well, who is this woman? She's nobody. I mean, nobody of any consequence, and that's the point, because they're like, what they're saying is, well, the only statues we really have around are from white men who have done something important. So we're going to erect a statue of a black woman who hasn't done anything. So they just don't get it. They just don't get it. So we're supposed to emulate this heavyset black woman that hasn't done anything. Okay. Anyway, but I promised you a Dum-Dum story, so here it is. And this comes from UPI. They said that a Kentucky woman said her young son was playing with her phone during the weekend and secretly placed an Amazon order, for, you got it, 70,000 Dum-Dum lollipops. A total purchase of about $4,200. Lexington resident Holly LaFavors said on social media that she was shocked to discover 30 cases of Dum-Dums on her doorstep, each containing about 2,340 pieces of candy in each box. And there's 30 of them. Yeah, LaFavor's son, Liam, who is a second grader, admitted that he had placed an order for suckers while playing with her phone during the weekend. And each of the Dum-Dums retails, the boxes retails for about $130, making Liam's total purchase about $4,200. Now, Amazon initially agreed to allow LaFavors to return about 8 of the 30 cases, because 8 of the cases actually got returned before they got to her doorstep. So she started attempting to sell to friends and neighbors and things. She said later, though, that after a long day of working with the bank and talking to a few news stations, that Amazon had contacted her and agreed to refund the entire purchase. So that's awesome. She said, "Thank you to everyone that offered to buy a box to help us." She wrote, "I will be happy to get you what you ordered or donate them to charity of your choice." So anyway, I guess Liam wanted some giveaways for a carnival that he wanted to do, and this is how it all started. But anyway, yeah, just, don't give your phone to your kid. Anyway, or you might end up with a lot of Dum-Dums. So I'd love to hear from you. Maybe you have a story like that. And of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. We're on YouTube now. Would love to have you subscribe, like, and share our podcast. And thank you for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.